Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Gourmet Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. Join alongside Tim in Green Bay, here to talk some Green Bay Packers, and more specifically, a little contract talk today. A little, all right, where are the Packers at salary cap wise? You know, you got some people saying, man, they got $60 million in cap space. You got others saying, it's actually only 12. As always, the truth somewhere in the middle. Tim, how we doing this morning, bub?
Doing good, man. Got the coffee going, ready to talk some salary cap and some ball, man. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Let's go to the chat first, get this thing kicked off right. Nick McSwain. Feel like people are putting too much blame on Love and not enough on the wide receivers. Rodgers and Favre had wide receiver that bailed them out. I like our pass catchers, but they're inexperienced and don't bail out QB1 often. You know, when you say a wide receiver bailing out a quarterback, and I think of this current roster, the one that comes to mind for me is Romeo Doubs, right? He's probably that dude that has been able to bail out on bad throws or bad decisions.
I just caught the ball.
Everyone else pretty straightforward. Again, we talked about this going into last year or going into this previous year, and to me it still holds true. Tim, I'll get your take. There is no field tilting number one receiver on this team, right? I think you've got a roster full of number two wide receivers. That's not a bad thing, right? Now, if you think all the other pieces are in place and, hey, let's go get that field tilting wide receiver one, then, I can't push back on that too hard. I just don't feel like the roster is completely in place, that's the only thing we're lacking. You know what I'm saying? So what do you think about here, what he said? Because, you think about Rodgers, think of the receivers he had, right? When he came in, he had Jennings, he had Driver, right? They drafted Jordy, okay? Also James Jones, don't forget that one, right?
Randall Cobb
ended up coming along too right after the Super Bowl. And then, if you go back to Favre, who did Favre had early on? He had Sterling Sharp, who got injured pretty quick, right? Favre's best receiver when they won the Super Bowl, like that whole little 3-year span, Sterling was already gone, right? If I remember correctly. Who did they have? They had Robert Brooks, Antonio Freeman, right? Mark Chmura as tight end, pretty good blanket there for Brett, right? Pretty good
Keith
safety.
Jackson,
Keith Jackson. I ain't gonna say it. I usually say it. Mandy cracks up when I say it, but you guys will think it sounds horrible. If you know the soundbite, you know the soundbite. But so I think there's a little bit of validity to the Aaron Rodgers one. But when you look at Favre, man, I don't know. I don't really feel like, hey, he had that dude that bailed him out. Am I wrong there, or I'm missing something there?
No, I don't think you're off, but I just like bailing them out. I'm like, let's define the parameters. Like, what does that mean? Bailing out your quarterback? I'd rather be in a situation where we don't have to bail anyone out and we just execute, and we're not making crazy mistakes. But I can also remember times during the Rodgers era, people complaining about giving him weapons. Why don't we give him weapons? He needs weapons. The guy's had weapons the whole time he was here. And I don't know. You guys see the Vikings game last night?
Yeah.
How'd that number one receiver work out? How did that work out? That guy's got a truck full of money. How did that work out for them last night?
I was cracking up watching Twitter because it was, most of the beat reporters were kind of going at the fans like, hey, they got a number one. They got that true number one. Didn't work out, right? I'm telling you, man, when it comes down to crunch time and you got to win a ball game, it really more times than not is the defensive front and the offensive front that's going to put you in a position to win that ball game.
Yep, it's true. Obviously, look at even the Philly game with us, AJ Brown, right? That guy he wasn't the one doing the damage to us in that ball game.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's an interesting topic there, though, Nick. Appreciate you bringing it up, man. But yeah, I had to. I think we covered it pretty well. We went kind of back in time and looked at.
Do you think he's referring to bailing out as in like when a play breaks down and like you got to scramble in his scramble drill? And it's
that's exactly what he means. It means, hey, look, nothing else is there. F it. So and so's there. Let's throw it up to him. We laugh about that. We joke about that on this thing, with this current roster, because that's not a good thing. It's not. It's a
double coverage bombs to Jaden Reed, and he just makes
somehow
a play.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of too. Tim, was it against the Rams? I think it was against the Rams, either the Rams or the Texans. I think it was the Rams. Yeah, where he
might have been both. Clayton, there have been a few of those this year.
It's a good point. But yeah, the other one obviously I didn't mention is Devontae Adams on the backside. That's what cracked me up, is that talk ended with Rodgers's final couple years or 3 years, whatever it was, when Tay was here. No one was saying he doesn't have a true number one. At that point, though, we were saying our special teams is garbage because we were getting punts blocked like crazy and field goals blocked and all that, right? So, just tough. But Randy Cleaver's in the chat says they're young Nick, and I think Love is still hurting, not stepping into his throws. He has been off the mark since he got hurt. I think there's some truth to that too. I really do. Josh Martin, I say trade Jair and Clark for the highest picks we can get. Use those picks to try and move up. We're going to talk salary cap a little bit today, and I'll explain to you why. Look, nothing's impossible in the National Football League, but trading Kenny Clark does not make a whole lot of sense. It doesn't.
Trading Jair is going to prove to be a little bit more challenging than I think people think.
We had this conversation off the air, me and Tim was like, "Yeah, I don't think Jair, you can trade him." And I went, "Well, no, you could free up $6 million." And he went, "Yeah, but who's going to take him?" And I went, "Great point. Like, who's going to line up to take a guy who was suspended by his team, has had huge injury concerns the last couple of years, right, and made those comments on his way out? Now, there'll be teams that would take him. There's no doubt about that, right?
Green Bay East.
Yeah, the Jets, right? There's teams that would take him. I'm just saying they're not going to give up a second-round pick or a third-round pick for Jair. I don't think. I could be wrong,
But maybe. I don't know about second. I think a third-round pick would even be stretching it at this point, but I don't know.
We'll see. We're going to find out soon enough. And like I said, we'll dive into some of the salary cap restructure possibilities, if you will, here in just a second. So Turtles, I go to work so early over here in Cali. This is my favorite show. Listen early. I appreciate that. So Turtles, that's making us a part of your morning here, buddy. We appreciate you. Hopefully you're safe out there in Cali, man. I know it's a pretty isolated area. It seems like that's affected with the fires, but I know still makes everybody nervous, that breeze coming off the ocean and everything. And won't get into all the details.
I've got an uncle out in Los Angeles area dealing with that right now. So prayers up for the family.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Got Rob Westerman in here from Green Bay Packers Daily. Appreciate you, boys. Morning, fellas. How would you guys rank the head coaches in the NFC North? Campbell losing his OC and DC possibly next year, and a poor game from KOC last night. Yeah, it's a great point, right? I'm wondering if Viking fans are calling for KOC to be fired like Packer fans are calling for Matt LaFleur to be fired, just because, I mean, they made it to the same round. That regular season was awesome, right? They had a blast. But, yeah, it's a great comment, great question there. As far as how we would rank the head coaches, if I remove my Packer hat right now, I would say Dan Campbell 1. I would have to put Matt LaFleur ahead of KOC, me personally. And it's close, but not like crazy close. It's not like splitting hairs. You know what I'm saying? Recency bias, there's going to be fans and people that say, oh, no, well, KOC beat him twice. That's true. He did beat him twice. But when you look at the resume that Matt LaFleur's created, I think he's got a ways to go before I would consider KOC a better coach than Matt. So my order would go Dan Campbell and then Matt LaFleur. Now, listen, if Dan Campbell had not dominated this year, I may even question that and go, I think Matt LaFleur is a better coach than Dan Campbell. I can't continue to refuse to acknowledge the fact that Dan Campbell is a leader of men and the way he's handled that organization. You've got to give credit where credit's due. They have responded. Now, they could lay a stinker next week, Tim, and watch it get loud on Dan Campbell.
I was just going to say, friendly reminder, Detroit still hasn't won a damn thing.
Yep, it's true.
So,
regular season, that's about it, right?
Right. I agree with you there. I don't want to take my Packer hat off, so I won't. I'm going to put Matty number 1. I'm going to go ahead and say Matt LaFleur. Then I would go Dan Campbell, then KOC, and then Mike McCarthy. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not official. I'm sorry.
Appreciate you
Bears
swinging.
still don't have a coach. I'm sorry.
Appreciate you swinging through, Rob. You're the man, buddy. Let's see here. Next, Anthony in the chat says, super happy that I can still get my daily Packer fix from you guys. That being said, get a wide receiver 1, a 3-tech, and maybe a center. I don't hate Myers, but I don't think he is the long-term solution. If you could tell me right now, hey, look, we're going to go get you a top 5 3-tech in the league. Are you okay with going and getting a big-name wide receiver 1? I'd be okay with that, because I would feel a lot better about, okay, I think the pieces might be in place. If you can't get that 3-tech and it's just, oh, well, we can get the wide receiver 1, now you're kind of, to me, you're putting the puzzle in place a little bit out of whack, a little bit out of order, Now, if you can put the wide receiver 1 in place this year and then next year somehow figure out the 3-tech, maybe next year's window, that's okay. That's the year we can go on a run. I just I don't have any faith in these interior defensive linemen on this roster. Hey, this guy's just all of a sudden going to emerge as, you've seen it last night. Why did the Vikings struggle so bad? Pressure.
They were getting blown up in the trenches, man.
Yep, that's exactly right. Now, Jared Verse went off. They did run some stunts. They run some things like that mixed in. He was screaming off the edge too in that wide 9. But up the middle, you'll notice the pocket got pushed in Darnold's lap, and then Darnold had to come off his spot, and then he was taking hits from the edge defenders, right? And I put a lot of that loss on Darnold. You got to throw the damn ball away. You can't run around for 8 seconds. It's all of a sudden he looked like Caleb Williams back there, like, oh, crap, my first read isn't open, and I've got pressure. Let me run around for 6-7 seconds behind the line of scrimmage, take a sack. It's like, just get the ball out. Losing yards is not going to help you here, right? I'm glad it happened. Don't get me wrong. But that's, kind of how I see that. So, appreciate the kind words, and anything you want to make a comment on there with his comment from Anthony here.
I think Anthony's onto something here. We've talked about, these position groups. I'm with you. I think it's just kind of, I would prioritize this a little differently. I'd probably go 3-tech first, then I'm looking to my O-line, then I'm looking at a wide receiver 1. And a wide receiver 1 is probably not going to come in the draft. It's going to have to be a move that's made in free agency or with a trade, I think, to get somebody that's established, if that's what we're truly after. Yeah.
Nick McSwain says, y'all know if we trade Jair, he's going to be healthy all year. Tim, that's exactly what would happen, right? That's exactly what would happen.
That's why I highlighted it. It'd be just our luck, right?
Hilarious. All right, let's go to Twitter here real quick. Matt Schnaben, I thought this was cool. Thrillia Plath on Twitter. Hope I'm saying that right. Plath, maybe. Related, seeing how McVay's team is flying around, energized, on the same page, really underscores the gap between him and Matt LaFleur in big spots. And then Matt Schnaben just went straight for the throat and said, Matt LaFleur's 5-0 against Sean McVay, including 1 win in the playoffs. So, I thought Matt handled that perfect, to be honest with you. Facts don't care about your feelings, man. You could watch a playoff game and go, why can't we get our guys buzzing like this? Matt has absolutely kicked Sean McVay's ass every time they played. And it's not even close, it feels like, Now, McVay's got that ring, and that's what LaFleur wants. If you said, hey, guys, you could flip resumes, I guarantee you Matt would flip resumes with him to have that ring. But I think there's a lot of validity to what Matt Schneidman said here, man.
I do too. Unfortunately, it also supports the whole, we can't get over the hump. We're great in the regular season. We're, great at times down the stretch, but we can't get over the hump. I think you're absolutely right. I think Matt LaFleur would gladly trade that 5-0 record against Sean for a ring, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's see what else is going on Twitter. There's a couple things I wanted to highlight for you guys. Update on the knucklehead there in Philly. I know people were asking about it last night. His company has reached out, and also Big Dom, right? Big Dom reached out, who is kind of head of security for the Eagles, and basically that dude's getting banned from Eagles games for life. So that's what it sounds like, at least on the surface. So unless there was not much truth to that, ML Football broke this out, and they had released a statement from BCT Partners. The management of BCT Partners has been made aware of a video circulating involving an employee making offensive remarks outside of the workplace. BCT Partners denounced this type of behavior, and we take this matter extremely seriously. As an organization, that has always stood for inclusivity. Had to sound that one out, Tim. The conduct displayed was completely unacceptable and stands in direct opposition to our company values. We have already begun a full investigation as an internal matter to determine what actions will be taken. We sincerely apologize to everyone affected by the behavior and remain committed to fostering a culture of respect for all. That was the official statement. Again, the main thing was just like, hey, prove a point and not let these knuckleheads in the stadium if they're going to act like that. Now, there was a tweet that I fell in love with last night, Tim. If I can find it, yeah, it's right here. Matter of fact, I got to be careful because I was tweeting some some funny stuff last night. But here we go. At Andy Swan, whoever that is, I don't know who he is. He could be the worst person on the face of the earth. He might be the best. I don't know. But he said,
"Hold on, man. I grew up next to a guy named Andy Swan. Let me make sure that's not my old buddy from childhood." There.
He said, "Hear me out. A Netflix series where MMA champions go undercover to Eagles games wearing the opposing team's jersey."
Oh, man.
Hey, sign me up for that. I literally, I just said, shut up and take my money, man.
I'll go to an Eagles game with John Jones any day. Let's go.
Exactly. This cracked me up. Let's give a shout out to at Nix_tape99 said Sam Darnold's agent right now. You can see Sam Darnold, those last two games, Tim, he probably cost himself $50+ million playing bad football. Now, here's what's hilarious about the situation from the Vikings standpoint. Now they're sitting back going, well, crap. Do we give him the bag or do we just move forward with J.J. McCarthy? There are questions to be answered there. I tuned into a couple of Minnesota Vikings postgame shows last night just to kind of hear where the fans were, and that was the talk. That was the conversation. We're like, holy crap, man. If this is the Sam Darnold we're getting moving forward, we're hurting. Now, people go, Clayton, how can a player just drop off that bad all of a sudden? It's real simple, guys. The playoffs are obviously, better teams, right? Not that the Vikings haven't played good teams this year, but also, man, all of that success you had this year with KOC, nobody had that Sam Darnold tape in KOC's system.
Yep.
Well, guess what happens? You get through a full season. That's why the sophomore slump exists. And it's not because this is a young player trying to figure out the league, although that is a factor. It's simply teams know what you do. They know what you do well, and they're going to try to make you play left-handed from this point on. So now, again, Vikings fans and the organization as a whole got to look up and go, oh, crap, is this the guy? Is this the dude, right? But I don't know. This made me spit my drink out last night. I ain't going to lie, man. Sam Darnold's agent right now. For those on the pod, it's a picture of Mike Tomlin looking like he's just over it. He's over everything, right? So anyway, what do you think?
Like he lost his dog or something in that picture. That's pretty sad.
It's a rough look, man. Rough look. What do you think they're going to do with Darnold, man? Do you think they're going to re-sign him? Just a quick little answer, whatever you think, man.
I don't know. I know that if you're looking to the future, you probably want to go with the kid, right? The proven champion at the collegiate level, the guy that you drafted to come in, unfortunately, had a season-ending injury.
Yeah.
I don't know if you give Darnold the bag and, mortgage your future on a guy like him. Do you think Darnold is a guy you want in, your quarterback room and have McCarthy behind him developing? I don't see that. So I think they might make the move with the kid next year.
Yeah. Could happen, man. Could happen. Now, if they decide to bring Darnold back, we originally talked about it and said, hey, man, what about a 2-year deal where it's actually just a 1-year deal, But if Darnold – there's going to be a team, I think, Tim, that will pay Darnold a lot of money this offseason. I think they've seen enough that they're going to make a bad decision and overpay for good and not overpay for great. He was great this year, but you're trying to pay someone for what they're going to do, not what they've done, right? That's the tough part for GMs, obviously. So we'll see, man. We'll see what happens. I thought this was I said Matt LaFleur watching KOC exit the playoffs again. Everybody waiting. The best one was, I think it was Cheesehead TV. Tyler over at Cheesehead TV had one where it was Homer sitting in the low-lit living room patting the couch. He had a Packers shirt on, and Bart next to him had a Viking shirt on. It's going, hey, Lions, you're next. Come on over and sit on the couch. So Twitter, man, I tell you, if you can get out of your emotions with your team, getting eliminated, it can be a fun place, man. I got more entertainment out of Twitter last night than I have really watching football most of the year. It was awesome. Now, I put this tweet out. I seen this screen grab earlier today. Of the final 8 NFL playoff teams, the 2024 Green Bay Packers defeated 2 of those. We beat the Rams 24-19. We beat the Houston Texans 24-22. And I put that up because a lot of the arguments this year has been, well, the Packers can't beat a good team. The Packers can't beat a good team. We beat 2 teams that made it to the final 8. Now, were those teams banged up at the time, this and that? Yeah, you can find every excuse to try to negate those wins too. I just thought that was interesting. So here is your playoff matchups moving forward. You got the Houston Texans at the Kansas City Chiefs next Saturday. Going to be a 4:30 Eastern kickoff. That's going to be, I think, the Monday Night Football crew doing that one. Probably cold weather in KC. I love it. Then you've got that night at 8 o'clock, you've got the Washington Commanders at the Detroit Lions. That'll be on Fox, so that'll be Brady in the bunch. And then on Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern, you'll have the LA Rams at the Philadelphia Eagles. Should have some cold weather there. And then Sunday at 6:30 Eastern time, you'll have the Baltimore Ravens at the Buffalo Bills. It's going to be cold up there in Buffalo. So you might get some weather involved here with these final playoff games. But again, just wanted to point out that 2 of these 8 here, Tim, we actually beat this year. Kind of cool. So
it's awesome. And hopefully Washington handles their business on Saturday against the Lions. One more to go, guys. We got to get rid of Detroit. I'll be so happy. It would be it would make things a little bit easier on us Packer fans, right, Clay? If all these NFC North teams end up on the golf course with the Packers.
Yeah. And Ian Rappaport is reporting the Raiders have begun submitting slips for their vacant GM job, and Packers VP of Player Personnel John Eric Sullivan has received a request to interview, sources say. So if I remember correctly, if my number's correct, I think that's 3 that's been set up for John Eric Sullivan in terms of an interview. So getting quite a bit of interest. I don't know how many teams are looking for GMs exactly. I don't know what percentage that would be in terms of how many of those GM jobs, what percentage of those vacancies that he's been invited to interview. But pretty cool to see the Packers VP of Personnel getting a little bit of credit here. Obviously, Goody's the one at the forefront, always getting the credit and the blame, right? Yeah, rightfully so. That's the way that works. But obviously, John Eric Sullivan looking to take his services somewhere else if the offer's on the table. Going to be interesting, man, because again, it's just another personnel guy that they are in that whole tree of Brian Gutekunst, Ted Thompson, and obviously Ron Wolf, right? Ron Wolf's general manager tree is starting to really, really stack up when you think about it.
Yeah, for sure. And, hopefully he doesn't get a job, right? And he stays here. But I think going on your 3rd interview is probably looking pretty good. Like he might have a chance to get hired somewhere. So you hope for the best for him. But it's always tough when you lose someone good in your organization, man. The Packers have that long lineage of just getting it done between the lines and behind the scenes. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right. So, again, just want to point that out with John Eric Sullivan. There's a couple other things here. We actually have our draft pick has been pretty much selected. Jordan Reed on Twitter at Jordan_REID. Go give him a follow. Updated 2024 draft order post wildcard round. The Packers are picking 23rd in the first round of the NFL draft. So right before them, you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 19, the Broncos at 20, the Steelers at 21, the Chargers at 22, Packers at 23, and the Vikings right behind them at 24. So let's hope Packers can take away the Vikings' top prospect on their board when we pick at 23 and just rub their nose in it. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. So
unless they trade down, like you always say, Clay, you never know.
Yeah, I'm always team trade down. There was a couple years when I was first couple years that was team trade down. It was like maybe it's just, and then I look up 8 years later, looking at the draft 10 years later, I'm going, I guess I'm just going to be like this every year because I would rather have multiple swings, at cheaper prospects than try to take one big swing on, hey, if you're in the top 5, I'm cool with sticking and picking because if you can't get that right in the top 5, then you don't deserve to be a general manager in the league.
Yep.
But once you get outside of the top 10, man, that becomes tough, especially when you get outside of the top 20. That's why I'm like, I feel like teams will overpay to trade up because it's the first round, and you can really make it worth your while climbing back from, 20 or later, really 15 or later, to be honest with you. Like the LVN pick he was right there on that border for me. He was the best prospect on my board, right, when they took him. But it was like, man, right below him, we got a cluster of like 12 guys who have a very similar grade to him. And I was thinking the whole time, like, boy, you could trade back right here. You could probably get 2 of those guys in that next tier, But again, they went the LVN route, and we'll see if it pays off. I thought he improved this year. His pressure percentage went up to almost 12%, I believe. Last I checked, it was over 11. At one point, it got to 11.8%. Pretty damn good run defender too, at least according to the tape. PFF may disagree, but on the tape,
that's what we were looking for from him, right? When the Preston Smith deal went through, we kind of felt that was like an amicable kind of situation, kind of benefited us a little bit, also helped Preston Smith go where he wanted to feel a little more comfortable playing in that 34. And we wanted to see LVN get more snaps and to step up, and I think he did. It's still a work in progress, year 2, but we'll see.
Yeah. So Turtles in the chat says LVN was a reach, and I really don't look at it like a reach. Again, I think that there was a pool of players there that you could justify taking any of those players right around the time that you took LVN. When I think of a reach, I think of a guy that, hey, this dude is actually one tier down, right, from the current tier of talent. Now, why was he in that top tier? If you remove his elite athletic ability, right, and his combine and all that stuff, his size, all the measurables that GMs absolutely fall in love with, you wouldn't have put him in that range. But again, our goal with the draft board every year is to try to put together a draft board that is as close to possible mimics what NFL GM's draft boards would look like. It's not necessarily, hey, here's my personal preference, I really like this guy. It's here's what the data collected suggests GMs are looking at in terms of here's where these players are. So kind of two different things there. But yeah, I would disagree a little bit. So Turtles, I don't think it was a reach to take him there. I just think there was a lot of other options around the same tier of talent that you could trade back. But we can obviously agree to disagree on that for sure, man. Like he said here, Goot loves them project first rounders. Timmy does. That's why I say get us the hell out of the first round. And let's just take good football players, right? So,
yep.
Yeah. All right. So let's see what else we got on Twitter here. We covered the draft pick. I think we're just about through everything I wanted to cover. Here's a good, since the draft is around the corner, I thought this was interesting. Jacob Morley tweeted this out. Everyone has permission to show me this next time I scoff at a draft prospect being too old. All right. And Warren Sharp had tweeted out a picture of Jared Verse just absolutely about to annihilate Sam Darnold here with the Ultimate Warrior splash. It says Jared Verse is a 260-pound nightmare. So, it didn't come to mind for me that Jared Verse was old, but obviously Jacob Morley does a hell of a job covering the Packers and covering the NFL as a whole. Evidently, that was the talking point around Jared Verse. Is he too old? Now, you guys know how I feel about that. I think it's absolutely silly. Should it be factored in to the probability of whether the Packers are going to draft the prospect? Absolutely. That's why I don't know if you can see this board, but if you'll notice the colored lines, right, that is to make guys stick out that go, wow, the Packers really like this type of player. Might be age, might be size, might be, a combination of a multitude of things, RAS score, all those. And of those picks last year, Sweet Baby Ray Davis was one. Hall Jr., defensive lineman, was one. Keeneland, I think is his name. Nealon maybe is how you say it. Edge defender was one. Austin Booker, edge defender, was one. And Katan Oladapo was one. So obviously we drafted one of those. I think there was only 6 or 7 that was just like, here it is. There was like 6 or 7 guys that just, man, these are Goody's tops right here, right? So obviously you got him. And, the other one was, by the way, Tyron Hopper. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys that were like, out of over 200 prospects on our board, we had 6 guys that were like, these are Goody tops. He drafted 2 of those 6. So kind of cool. We'll try to stick to that formula this year as we move into the draft as well. But again, I don't buy into this whole he's old, Tim. What do we say? Like, if you draft a player, or if the Packers draft a player and he's 23, it's, well, he's old though, right? But then you draft a player who's 21 and they make mistakes, it's, well, he needs a couple years, he's young.
Right.
What are we
even talking about here? Yeah, absolutely. And anybody in their early 20s is not old. I mean, even by football standards, let's be real here. The dreaded 29 going into 30 seems to be the rough spot to be in when it comes to NFL age. But I think absolutely. I think talent is more important, and I think filling those positional needs is more important. I'd be willing to take a gamble on a guy that might be a year or two older, but can come in and contribute right away. You know, that's what we're looking for out of our draft picks. I think a lot of people are tired, regardless of what round it is. They're tired of the, hey, let's draft a guard and see if he can play tackle, or let's draft a D end and see if he can play outside linebacker, or enough of this ball of clay kind of stuff, and get a guy who can come in and be a menace right away. That's what we're looking for in the draft, I think, at least as a fan base right now.
Yeah, for sure. And again, Jared Verse was our third best edge defender on our draft board last April. And obviously he made an impact last night. And I'm sure he's had a decent year based off of the way people were talking about him. So let's see what else we got here. All right. So we're ready to get into some salary cap talk. I'm going to lead it off, Tim, with this tweet I put out. And then we're going to share the screen and show some salary cap table stuff. All right. So one of the things I like to do every year, guys, and I know we did it last year, Tim, and last 2 years we've knocked it out of the park, where we've been able to identify those players that, hey, here are the ones that will probably get restructured. And you kind of start to build this roadmap of, all right, what's the salary cap actually going to look like, right? So here is the tweet that I put out earlier this morning, okay? I said, these are the top 7 Packers most likely to have their contracts restructured. Now, I put in parentheses, doesn't mean they will. So all the slam dunkers, go ahead and bookmark it, then come back and go, you said all 7 were going. Doesn't mean they will. We're saying these are the guys who were primed to have restructures.
Right. We're obsessed with football. We're not obsessed with being right about everything.
Exactly. And listen, there is a cult following around salary cap gurus that is hilarious. Let me tell you, they put on their glasses and they bring in their calculators and they swoop right into the comments and want to dunk on you over $300,000, right? It's absolutely hilarious. So anyway, in Green Bay, in terms of their base salary, followed by the top 5 likely for a restructure in terms of roster bonus. Okay, let me go ahead and click on the tweet and we'll get the whole thing up here. If the Packers choose to be aggressive, they could have $50+ million in cap space. Now, there's going to be people that go, Clayton, they got $60 million in cap space right now. They actually don't, and we'll explain what we mean by that. I said the number right now without any restructures is between $25 and $30 million. Now, notice how I left the buffer there, right? Guys, it could be $23 million, it could be $32, but that's kind of the range that I'm looking at. And $5 million in the NFL with salary cap is absolutely nothing. It's time sensitive, don't get me wrong, but you can find $15 million in the cap like that. It's just you got to make sure you got your ducks in a row in time so you don't meet a deadline like what happened with Zadarius Smith, where it's like, I think they were going to let him go anyway, but you kind of back against the wall like, all right, we're just going to have to cut him out right here to get under the cap at that moment, right? I said the number right now without any restructures is between 25 and 30 million. That includes the draft class, okay? So keep in mind that includes the draft class, the future contracts, all that good stuff, okay? Depending on how they choose to operate. And I'm going to show you a couple different screen grabs, and then we're going to go to Spotrac. Probably be easier to go to Spotrac because it's going to be hard for you guys to see. Yeah. Let me just list these guys off real quick. Jair Alexander, Jordan Love, Elton Jenkins, Rashawn Gary, and Xavier McKinney. All of those have a decently high base salary, okay? So when you look at their base salary, you go, okay, we could potentially create cap space there. The one thing I want everybody to understand is when you're restructuring contracts, there's 2 dominant ways that you can do this. Predominantly how the Packers do it is you take base salary and convert it to signing bonus. And what that means is their salary for the year, instead of them having to kind of wait on that, and yes, it is guaranteed to a certain extent, but what you can do is you can take that base salary, convert it to signing bonus, write them a check right then. And when I say base salary to signing bonus, we're talking about a portion of it, not the whole thing, okay? You turn it into a signing bonus, you write them a check right then, and now because that's a signing bonus and it's paid in full, you can spread that cap hit out over the duration of the contract. Okay, that's why you see voidable years get tacked on, so they can spread it out over those voidable years, even though they're not going to be on the roster. It allows you to maneuver the salary cap and free up space for the future. Now, if at any point they are cut from the team or they're gone, all of that, those advanced years, right, the voidable years, that money will then accelerate to the current year, and the tickets due, the bills due at that moment. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now, the other way is through roster bonuses. Okay, roster bonuses. The top roster bonuses on the team are Rashawn Gary, Xavier McKinney, Kenny Clark, Josh Jacobs, and Keyshawn Nixon. So you can do the same exact thing with the roster bonus, right? The roster bonus is due if they make the roster, if they make the 53. So what you can do is convert that to signing bonus, or a portion of that to signing bonus, and be able to spread it out over the duration of the contract rather than that being the cap hit on this current year. So these numbers that we're showing you here, and I'm going to go ahead and close this out and get you guys over to Spot Track to make it a little bit easier and show you exactly what we're talking about. We're going to explain exactly how much money we could possibly free up per each player here. And I know Spot Track gets a little bit weird with us here as far as their sidebar, but hopefully you guys will be able to see this okay. We'll go full screen to make it a little bit easier. So this is your 2025 salary cap table, okay? Essentially, this is your by cap hit, all right? So if you go to cap hits, Jordan Love leads the team with $29.7 million in cap hit next year. Second is Jair Alexander at $25.8. Now, notice the dead cap attached to Jair is $19 million. So you can free up roughly $5 to $6 million if you just cut Jair outright or you traded him away. Okay. Rashawn Gary, 25.7. So his cap number goes from 11 million to 25.7 this current year, right? Kenny Clark is sitting at 20.3. Last year, his number was higher and it dropped. Right now it's dropped down to 20.3. But here's the thing. Look at the dead cap attached to Kenny. It's 26.8 million. So the people that are saying trade Kenny away, cut Kenny, if you do that, his cap hit's only 20.3 million. If you do that, you're going to lose 6 million in
6.8 million, yeah,
for him to just not be on the roster. Okay, so now what you got to ask yourself is it worth it to eat 6 million in cap deficit, right, to acquire a draft pick for Kenny? What do you think, Tim, and people in the chat? What kind of draft pick do you think the Packers could get for Kenny Clark?
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
I'm not an accountant. I don't think there's a situation where a team's going to give, a third-round pick for Kenny Clark. I could be wrong. Now you got to ask yourself, let's assume it is out there, Tim. Let's say someone is willing to give him a third-round pick to a 30-year-old whose cap hit is $20.3 million. Right? If that happens, is it worth it? You're basically saying we will lose $6 million in cap space for a third-round pick. Now, some people would go, yeah, but if we got extra cap space, why not just do it? Because that extra cap space, even though you're not using it, like this year, the Packers didn't use $14 million in cap space.
I was just going to say, usually like 8 to 20 million range or 15 million, they want to be over and have that wiggle room. You got to factor that in.
And it rolls into the next year. It's not like you lose that cap space. So,
right, you're building it. Yeah.
Bingo. Joseph in the chat. Welcome back, Kenny. That's exactly
right. Kenny Clark, you will retire a Packer.
Yeah. So for me, if it was, hey, you're freeing up cap space and you're getting a draft pick, I'd be a little more open to trading Kenny. But the fact that you're going to have to eat $6 million off of your cap, that's just a tough look for me. It really is. So Xavier McKinney is the next one at $17.8 million. All right, in cap hit, and then Elton Jenkins at 17.6. Now let's talk about where we can free up money. All right, let's hit that. So if we go over to base salary, and this is where it might get a little bit difficult because I want to keep the names on. It's not going to allow me. So this is probably going to get a little bit smaller. I apologize. I know what she said. Base salary. You're out of control. Base salary, $16.1 million for Jair Alexander. So when I talked earlier in the year, or as the year was starting to wind down, and I said, man, Jair, it makes more sense to try to restructure his contract and bring him back. This is what we're talking about. If you went to him and said, hey, we want to convert, we want to write you a $5 million signing bonus check that'll guarantee $5 million of that 16.1 if you're willing to take a $5 million pay cut too. So now he's got to ask himself, is it worth it for me to pack my family up, move them halfway across the country, and pass up on guaranteed money at $5 million when I don't even know what I'm going to get from another team if I'm cut outright, right? Or if I'm traded, what's the new deal going to look like if we have to negotiate in that regards as well? That's where this makes the most sense for me. Now, the other thing about Jair, if you were to trade him, let's say a team did give you a third-round pick, okay, you are freeing up roughly $5 million, a little over $5 million in cap space, and you pick up a third-round pick. I can see that making sense. But the whole, like I said, Kenny Clark thing doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So that's why one thing I want to uncover here is Kenny Clark, guys, he's going to be here. Unless there's something I'm completely missing about the structure of his contract, he's going to be here. It's one of the reasons why some people felt like he took a little less money than other defensive tackles were making last year, just because there was more security involved. He wasn't going to get cut outright. Does that make sense, Tim?
It does, and it makes sense when you look at the extension last year that they gave him. Right, clearly that was probably the intent. They had to be thinking forward when they did this. I think Kenny's going to be here for at least the next year or two for sure.
Yeah. So again, Jair Alexander base salary $16.1 million, Jordan Love $11.9 million, Elton Jenkins $11.7 million, Rashawn Gary $7 million, Xavier McKinney $3 million, Quay Walker $2.5 million. Those are base salaries. All right. Now what we're going to do.
I got a question for you real quick, not to get off
topic.
I'm looking at Big E there at that magic number, the dirty 30. He's 30.
Yep.
Do you see a restructure? Do you see them going to Elton for a restructure or moving some things around to free up space?
I do. I could see it. I think all of these guys, like I said, the 7 that we mentioned, what I did was a combination of base salary and a combination of roster bonus. I see all 7 of those, Tim. All 7 of them, or I could see a restructure happening. The question is, how aggressive does Goody want to be in free agency, right? So, yeah, with Elton, I can see that. And we're going to talk roster bonus now. And when we get into roster bonus, you'll see the number. There's actually some of these players have roster bonuses attached. The best way to zero in, if you guys have ever zeroed in a rifle, right? You ever zeroed in a rifle at a range? This is the similar thing. You're looking at base salary, you're looking at roster bonus, and you go, okay, which of this entire team has a good chunk of their roster structured through base salary and in roster bonus? And those are the guys who are the prime candidates to be restructured. It doesn't mean other guys can't get restructured or pay cuts and all that. It just simply means those are the guys that are right there at the top of the list. So, yeah, Elton Jenkins, $11.7 million, Rashawn Gary, $7 million, Xavier McKinney, $3 million. Now, let's see if I can get over here to where you guys can see it. It's going to get really small because of that damn sidebar. It's driving me crazy. But if you look at roster bonus now, we're going to sort by roster bonus. And I'll just read off who it is here. At the very top of the list, roster bonus is Rashawn Gary at $8.7 million, Xavier McKinney, $8.5 million, Kenny Clark, $7.5 million, Josh Jacobs, $5.9 million, and Keyshawn Nixon, $2.8 million. All right. So those are your prime candidates to be restructured based off of roster bonus. So when we break it down now, and I'll kind of zoom back out here and go back to just the cap hits. That way you guys can see this stuff again. When you break everything down, Tim, here's what you come up with. And these are my numbers. And again, these are not going to be to the T. I always say, give me a $5 million buffer. All right. That's always kind of my plan of action there in terms of explaining this stuff. So when you look at let me drop this down real quick. We got the wrong one. There you go. When you look at the entire roster after the draft class, you're going to have somewhere around 34 million. So give or take 5 million. Your operating money, typically you like to use somewhere between $5 to $7 million in operating money. I mean, you want at least that minimum nest egg there in case an injury occurs and you got to go sign a free agent off the street and you're not having to restructure at any point during the season to try to scramble for that money. So with that being said, the 34 million minus the 5 million gives you roughly 29 million. Let's call it 29 million. Okay. But you know what? Let's call it 30 million for easy math. All right. So now you've got Rashawn Gary with a base salary of 15.7 and a $7 million. I'm sorry, a total restructure capability of $15.7 million. Let me explain what that means. You take the salary, the base salary, and you take the roster bonus and combine them, right? So at 15.7, my rule of thumb every year is realistically take half of that total number. And that's what you can I think the Packers would realistically think about restructuring to free up. So with Gary, it's 15.7, meaning roughly half. We'll just call it $7 million. Jair Alexander, 16.1 is the number for him. So $8 million. He leads all the players that are primed for a contract restructure. All right. Jordan Love, 11.9 total. So $5 million is a realistic restructure number for Jordan Love's contract. Elton Jenkins, you were just asking about him, Tim. 11.7, we'll call it $5 million. All right. Xavier McKinney, 11.5, we'll call it $5 million. You notice I'm going under half. I'm playing it really, really safe.
Right. Playing conservative. Yep.
Exactly. Kenny Clark, 7.5, so we'll call it $3 million. And then Josh Jacobs, 5.9, we'll call it $2 million. So when you total all of that up, and I had tallied it up earlier, I'm going to go back through and add it up again right now. Let's get us a total number. I think it came to 35, I believe. Let me see here. We'll go 7 plus 8 plus 15 plus another 5. Yeah, 35 million. So now 35 million plus that 29 million, you're looking at roughly $64 million that if the Packers wanted to go, hey, you know what, guys, let's go in, let's restructure, these all 6 or 7, whatever it was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think 8 contracts. Let's go in and restructure those contracts and let's just go on a damn shopping spree. I don't think they're going to do that. Let me be really, really clear. So what I would do is take that number and cut it in half. And when free agency opens, I'm thinking you're going to have about $30 million to play with because they are going to restructure some of these contracts. But again, that list is real simple. Jair Alexander, Rashawn Gary, Jordan Love, Elton Jenkins, Xavier McKinney, Kenny Clark, and Josh Jacobs, I think are all primed for a contract restructure. Now,
so the real question is, of that 30 million plus that might be available, how much of that are you going to piss away on a wide receiver one?
And I'll tell you this, if you go that route, I hope they pay most of the bill, which the Packers are pretty good at this. I hope they pay most of the bill on the front side.
Yeah.
That way you look up in 2 years and go, this didn't work. Get him the hell out of here.
Right. And then we're not stuck in cap hell. Yeah.
Right. So now at the same time, if we were to play devil's advocate, Tim, and all right, let's say we all agree we're going after a wide receiver one. What's that going to look like? Of that money we just talked about, let me write it down here. I'm going to go high and low end. So we'll go 64 milli, and then let's just call it 32 at half.
Shout out to Brian in the chat. There is no wide receiver one in free agency.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much.
Love it.
T. Higgins. What about T. Higgins? I don't see it that way.
I would rather roll the dice and keep Scoot and let him rehab and work back. That's just a personal opinion.
Yeah. I'm with you there, man. I just now listen, would the trade market heat up and there might be a dude that's just an absolute stud? As Brian says, T. Higgins ain't it. That's the way I see it too, based off of the availability and really everything, just the overall work. Now you can look at last year and go, man, he had a pretty good year. He did. But again, overpay for great, never overpay for good. Right.
Yep.
So we're on the same page there, Brian. So again, what you've got, guys, is somewhere between 32 and 64 million of capabilities if you want to restructure contracts and free up money to go shopping for free agents. Tim, you listen to me ramble there that entire time. Be honest. Is there any part of that you go, Clayton, that doesn't make sense? Did I miss anything there that you noticed on the front side? Anybody in the chat, did I miss anything? Because it's definitely possible.
Yeah, lean on the chat. I think you covered it. I defer to you when it comes to the cap stuff. I'm really bad at math. The math ain't mathing with this guy over here.
And listen, I'm not a cap guru, nor do I claim to be one on Twitter. Okay. But the numbers that I always crunch every year, I try to err on the side of less so it doesn't look like we've got more than we're saying. There are some people that have convinced themselves we've only got 20 million in cap to spend. And I'm telling you, if the Packers see this as the window's open and we want to go get some guys, there's going to be restructures take place regardless. It's just how aggressive are they going to be doing that, right? So, Biz, I'll pull it back up there, Tim. I'll hit it. Biz 1987, great point. Tim was right. 2 elite receivers didn't help the Vikings last night. telling you, man, it's week to week. It's matchup to matchup. It's how every week, 1 week it may be, Tim, the answer may be, man, we need this dude to have number one receiver top play for us to beat this team. More often than not, that's not the case. It's more about what are they doing well and how can we out-scheme them and put our guys in a position to do what they do really, really well. Javon Bullard's the perfect example. You know, it would have been awesome. Second-round pick, he plays safety. Pretend like we didn't have Evan Williams this year, and we had to force Bullard to play safety. That's not a good look. He's played much better in the slot. The fact that we've got Evan Williams allows us to put him in the slot, but that's the perfect example of put guys in positions to be successful, right? He's successful in the slot. He's not successful at safety, at least at this point in his early career, only being in the league for 1 year, right?
That's, to me, that's why picking up KT Oladapo and Omar Brown was so clutch, because we talked about Goody retooling that safety room in one off season, right? Getting rid of the dead weight in that safety room, bringing in McKinney, going to the draft and hitting what I believe, if it's not a home run, I think Evan Williams is a home run in the draft. And I think Oladapo, Omar Brown, those are like triples or, double to the gap kind of thing. And it gives us some depth and stability at the safety end where we don't have to have these conversations about moving a cornerback or shuffling around the whole secondary when a guy goes down with injury. And then, like you said, guys are in a position to be successful. Javon Bullard is clearly, molded to play slot corner. And I think you build behind that. We've got Kalen King in the room already. I think Carrington Valentine is our boundary guy of the future. We've got some question marks at other spots, but feel really good about that safety room and not having to put Bullard back there unless, all hell breaks loose, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Prince in the chat, 5th-year option decision on Wyatt and Walker will factor in too. It won't affect the cap this year, right? It'll affect the cap next year because you'll have to make that decision this offseason. And then, of course, that cap hit won't happen until the following year. You guys know how I feel about the 5th-year option. I think there's a lot of fans that are kind of, I don't know, they don't fully understand what the 5th-year option, the value in the 5th-year option. The 5th-year option, in my opinion, is, hey, here's a guy that we cannot afford to lose, and we can bridge the gap to a contract extension with this. We're going to pay for it, fully guaranteed. It's almost like a mini franchise tag, right? But I don't think teams really want to use that because when you do use it, yes, we as we learned with Savage, you can maneuver it. You can spread it out just like you can any other guaranteed money, right, over the duration of the contract, tack on voidable years, all that stuff. That was really creative how Goody did that with Savage. But Savage, it was more of a crap. We don't have anybody in the safety room, and we still believe in this guy. I didn't believe in him, but Goody and them definitely did, right? So
it's so true, and that's why you see, the Packers not picking up that option on Stokes because they felt pretty good about that cornerback room. Obviously, now we feel a little differently considering what's going on, but we'll see.
Definitely. And as far as the 5th-year option here on Wyatt and Walker, if it were me, I would not pick up that 5th-year option on either, and I would try to negotiate a contract like with Quay. I personally, you know how I feel about it. I'm not willing to overpay. Let's say someone thinks he's good. Well, he's with his athleticism and listen, his tackle statistics, that's going to perk people's interest up a little bit. Like, hey, this dude can flow to the football. Now, I think GMs are smart enough to understand the depth of the tackles, right? And that's a huge factor as well. But I think what will happen with Quay is kind of like Josh Myers. If Josh Myers is healthy, his athleticism is going to warrant a bigger contract on the market. So that's why I'm looking at Quay and Wyatt and going, both of them are kind of athletic freaks, and they will have a decent market. I expect one of those to get a 5th-year option. I would not do it, but I'm expecting Goody to do it. Matter of fact, I think we've got us a bet on that. Don't we have that on the ticker? Didn't I make a bet with someone?
We sure do.
Pull the receipts on old Clayton here. Let's see.
Let's pull them receivos. Shout out to Coach Len. Yes, Costco has good tequila if you're a tequila guy.
It's 2024. You don't know what I meant. That's PTA Jacob. If the Packers have a top 7 scoring defense, I'll get an Emilio tattoo on my left butt cheek. PTA
Don't put
Jacob.
that name in my mouth right there.
We're working on that right now. Jacob getting a tap. They were human meat missiles. That was PTA Jacob. Just the tip. That was head coach Tupac LaFleur.
Just the tip, though.
I actually make good music. That was PTA Jacob.
Here's mine. Whoops.
Tim says they're winning 14 games, boys. Book it. PTA Tim. I love it. Hey, here's another want. I said third and Wicks. Want. That didn't work out this year either, right? This one did work out. Emilio said Tucker Kraft drinks the Gatorade of working men.
I'll play the Eagles on the damn moon. Yeah, I'm not deviating from that.
I can't wait to clear this ticker off, Tim. We suck so bad.
Here goes Chris and versus Clayton for a dozen Krispy Kremes. Chris says Goody will not give fifth-year options for both Quay and Devontae Wyatt. Okay.
Yeah. So essentially what it means is, and then the final one was, I'm going to go do some squats, PTA Jacob, when he found out that the Packers did have a top 7 scoring defense. What it means is with that bet with Chris in is if Goody picks up just one of those fifth-year options, then he owes me a dozen donuts. If he doesn't pick up either, I owe Chris in a dozen donuts. So, again, I think Goody will pick one up. It's just kind of going on precedent.
Let's be real. It's probably going to be Quay.
Ain't Quay. I was wondering about why.
I don't know. I mean, first-round guy, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying if they weren't, obviously first-round picks is a reason you get the fifth-year option in the first place. But if they weren't first-round picks, I would be a little more hesitant of, is the team going to bring them back? But the fact that Goody, again, he loves his first-round picks, man. There's no two ways about it. So, it is what it is. Now, he didn't put the fifth-year option on Eric Stokes, right? And we all think that was the right move. So maybe it doesn't have him with Wyatt or Walker, but, again, he's got to try to work out a deal behind the scenes in negotiation. And if he can't, during that re-signing period, if he can't, Tim, I think both of those guys are probably going to get a decent chunk of change in free agency. It won't be top 3, top 5 money, but it'll probably be more than we're willing to pay. And that's why I just don't like the fifth-year option, because the fifth-year option is suggesting, hey, they're top 3, top 5 at their position. It's kind of what it feels like. So,
yep.
I don't know. Anything else you got to add to the fifth-year option conversation? I'm glad that Prince brought that up.
No, we'll see, though. We'll see who's buying donuts. I'm waiting.
Waiting for those receipts to drop. I think we've hit everything I pretty much wanted to hit here this morning, Tim. We wanted to talk about the restructure capabilities. I've got it wrote down. So we've got that number that we can build off of as we get closer to free agency. Yesterday, we covered our own free agents, who we wanted to see back, who we didn't, right? And we talked about their PFF grades. What we'll probably do tonight is we'll take a quick glance at the Packers roster and where everyone finished PFF-wise, okay? And then we'll start to dip our toe a little bit into free agency, because we've got the free agents list pulled up. We got the top 25 according to PFF. And then we've also got all of the top or every 2025 free agent on Spot Track, and it's sorted by average annual value, which is basically how the league has valued them at this point with their recent contracts. So we'll kind of look at it from 2 different angles and give everybody a really good idea of, okay, here is where our roster is PFF-wise and where our holes may be. Again, we identified our needs earlier. We did votes in here and on Twitter as well. Number 1 priority, 3-tech, a defensive tackle. Number 2 will be a corner. Now, we said slot corner, but if Ja's not going to be here, and listen, with what happened yesterday, I think that percentage went up a little bit more. I think before I said it was like 55%. I didn't think he'd be here. Now it's kind of like the 75% mark. Like, okay, this is really ramping up. Something may happen. But if that happens, Tim, we probably need to take multiple swings at cornerback.
I would think so. If you're talking about going in with, you're looking at your corners being Keyshawn and Carrington Valentine, right? Mm-hmm. At least at this point, if there's no Jair, right? And then you feel good about Bull at the slot. Again, Kalen King is an outlier. We haven't seen much of him. So, yeah, I think you got to take a couple swings at corner, both in the slot and the boundary.
Yeah. So let's say that it got to the point that you just cut Jai outright. And then keep in mind that 64 to 32 million possibility now goes up to 70 million or, 30, well, let's call it 69 million or 37 million in cap space with possible restructures. So, and again, the top number right now is sitting at 64. The bottom number at 32 is probably going to fall somewhere in the middle. I think we'll probably go into free agency for somewhere around $40 million, maybe $45 million. You got money to do what you want. And keep in mind, these cap hits, if we were to go back in time as we get ready to wrap up, you go, okay, what does a cap hit look like for a top free agent? Let me give you an idea. Xavier McKinney's cap hit in 2024 his first year with the Packers, $7.8 million. That's the way Goody likes to approach free agents, is to, I don't want to say backload it, but he likes to ease into the contract where it's not like adding crazy cap space on the front side. You know, we talked about if you were to go get T. Higgins, maybe you do front load that so you can get out in a couple of years, what have you. But with the way it was restructured for McKinney, guys, we got the best safety in free agency, arguably the best safety in the league, for $7.8 million against the cap in the first year of their free agent contract. And then the other one, Josh Jacobs at $5.3 million. We got a top running back at $5.3 million. So, you know, some people will go, oh, he's going to be too expensive. He's going to be too expensive. I'm telling you, the way the first year works out in cap space with or in cap hit with a newly signed free agent, the way Goody does business, it's not going to be crazy. So, Tim, if we do end up with $40 million after restructures, we can go, man, we can realistically spend $40 million. What I'm saying is, first year money, you could go get 4 free agents, top of the line free agents, and make that happen within the cap to fall into that space. The problem is the rest of that money is going to come due later. So realistically, I think the same as last year, man. We're looking at probably 2, maybe 3 potential free agent signings if the right players are out there. Again,
right.
I don't care if you got, just because you got the money, don't mean you go to Michael's and spend the money, Mandy. It just doesn't mean you spend it. But if you got that sitting there and you look up and go, holy cow, these free agents are the top free agents, that's worth spending money and it's a need for us. You got the money to do it. You got it. That's exciting. That's really, really exciting, especially after you just paid Jordan Love that huge contract, right? But that's why it's important to understand exactly how the salary cap works. You don't have to know it to a T. I don't know it to a T, but I know just enough to go, okay, don't buy into the doom and gloom. They're going to be out there. They're going to be important. Well, they don't actually have that much. Trust me. If you got a player, as Ted Thompson told his guys, right, when they decided to trade up for Clay Matthews, they said, yeah, well, that's a lot to give up. He went, I want the player, right? If you got a player out there or 2 that, hey, this could get us over the hump. The Super Bowl window is open for the Packers.
Yep.
Right.
For how long though, we don't know. So you got to move now. Yep.
Yeah, that's how it feels.
And you're right about the excitement factor, because I believe in my heart of hearts, man, we are 2 or 3 pieces away from it, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We just got to get 2 or 3
of
these things covered, man, and we can hang with the best of the best for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how I missed this. Joseph said, now you're talking dirty to us, Clayton. He put laughing emoji with money. But here it looks like we got breaking news. Number 1 Packer fan, if he's correct here, Tom Clements announced his retirement. So our quarterback guru coach is done, it sounds like. I haven't seen it on Twitter yet, but I haven't been looking at Twitter. We've been crunching numbers.
That shouldn't be super surprising, right?
No.
But it still sucks because that's our guy, right? That guy is a legend. You know, put him on the Ring of Honor as far as I'm concerned. So now developed some Hall of Famers, man, in his career, and you got to tip your cap to Tom Clements, man. Just one of the GOATs when it comes to QB whisperers for sure.
Right. And as far as possible replacements, you got Sean Mannion in house that could just kind of take over. He's been studying under Clements. Now, the other thing is, remember, Luke Getsy's been in and around the building too. I wouldn't be surprised if Luke Getsy, if he doesn't get any offers out there to be an OC anywhere, I could see him being a quarterback coach again. Because if I remember correctly, Tim, he was our quarterback coach who ended up getting promoted to offensive coordinator and then got signed by the he was our quarterback coach and he got signed as the OC in Chicago, right? Am I remembering that right?
Correct. Yep.
So what Matt LaFleur's been doing all year is bringing in these other coaches that he's worked with in the past and even Robert Saleh and getting them familiar with the organization in case something like this happens, you know.
Yep.
Like if Jeff Hafley got an interview, I don't think we've seen anything there, but if he got a head coaching interview, you can bet your sweet bottom that Robert Saleh will be at the top of Matt LaFleur's list for DC.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. That's why I'm leaning with Prince in the chat. Sean Mannion probably next man up. I that's what my gut's telling me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Mannion made that quick transition from player to coach. So maybe, you know, then again, maybe not. Right? Maybe it's too soon to give him the keys. But I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. But either way, man, you got to tip your cap and show some appreciation for Tom Clements, man. And thank you for coming out of retirement the first time to come back to 1265 and try and get us over the hump, man. And we'll see how things go in the future, but he's definitely going to be missed in that locker room for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. We'll wrap it up there. We'll be back tonight, 7 p.m. Central for PTA Live. And we may have the rest of the crew with us, but what we're going to do tonight is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to now look at the PFF grades on the year and go, okay, who overperformed, who underperformed, right? Where are weak spots? We already got some of our needs identified. We're going to look at it through the PFF eyes tonight and then start to jump into free agency and show you, okay, here are the top free agents available. Are they good? Are they great? That's going to determine how much money you offer them. Xavier McKinney was great. We knew that. We offered him a good chunk of money, and you see only, 7.8 million against the cap. Josh Jacobs, they thought he's great. Let's go get him. Sealed the deal there, only 5.3 million against the cap in 2024. So I think that's what the next wave of free agents that Goody goes out and signs could look like for sure. So again, looking for Fractal of God. He was the winner of our autographed Carl Brooks picture. Second place was Mark Zambito. I still haven't heard from Fractal of God. I've reached out everywhere. I've reached out in Patreon. Obviously, we're looking through emails, seeing if he emailed us. So we haven't heard from him. Mark Zambito, you're the second place winner. If I don't hear from Fractal of God and Mark Zambito reaches out, we'll send you the picture. And then Jacob Clay was the third place winner. So if you're one of any of those three people, shoot me a text or an email. Okay, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com or 865-658-5824. That way we can get that shipped out. Again, we got to take it in order. We'll give Fractal of God a couple more days to reach out. If he doesn't, we hear from Mark or Jacob, we'll give it to one of you two guys. So thanks to everybody in the Patreon group. Thanks to everybody here as YouTube members. The chat was absolutely on fire. I want to always specify this. You do not have to be a member. You do not have to be a Patreon member or a YouTube member to be a part of this show, right? It's fans coming together. It's just people wanted a way to support us and what we were doing, and that's why we kind of created those two avenues for people to support the channel, and we greatly appreciate it. It's absolutely huge. So, Tim, thank you for your time, man. I'll see you tonight, buddy.
Thanks, Clay. Appreciate it.
For those of you listening on the pod,
hey, thank you for making us a part of your day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world. Go Pack.
And we go.
We're out. Bye, guys.